Uh-oh. You're gonna need to stay back and 15 years.
Esto es Comando Z.
Hey everybody, Leishi Curbelo here in another amazing episode of Come and See. Today with me, Olivia. Hi Olivia, how are you?
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I'm super excited that have you here to talk about this amazing and hot topic about AI. Are you ready to share some insights and some good information about it?
I am ready to go. I got some tea. I got a bit of a cold, so I've got a raspy voice, and we're adding a little extra flavoring to the recording today.
Please, people, Olivia doesn't want to sound sexy. It's just that she has a cold.
Oh, well. What can I say?
Thank you so much for even being sick, be here to share with the audience on this important topic.
Of course. I'm ready to go.
So, Olivia, I want to start this conversation talking about a little bit of your background, understanding why you start with AI and specifically responsible AI. That I think the mostly of the audience are really willing to understand what is responsible AI. But before of that, who is Olivia and why you choose this so hot topic?
Oh my goodness. So that is a huge long story, but I'll give you the condensed version. So I am Olivia. I am what you would call an AI ethicist. So I work in the field of ethics and I apply it to artificial intelligence. For me, what that means is I specifically look at how to embed our human values into our technology. I'm not necessarily a technologist, so you won't find me down in the code or the data. You'll actually find me more working on the business case or designing the features for some of these AI solutions, or even all the way up with executives and just training in terms of leadership of how to lead a team in this new disruptive era. So that's the shorter version of who I am, but how I got into AI ethics, I have always been fascinated by ethics itself. For me, it's how I try and wrap my mind around what is life and what is this world. I think that human values are these really powerful things that are almost like these unseen laws of humanity that sit below the surface. And so for me, that's always been really fascinating. And AI itself is really like this mirror of humanity back towards us. So it becomes this kind of playground for me to understand even at a new level of depth of what are these values, how do they work in action, how do they influence what we as people do. And so it makes a very fascinating field to be working in. So that's a little bit about me and how I ended up here in the first place. Exactly.
I really like how you actually expose the topic of ethics. Sometimes people think, oh, yeah, that is important, but in the day to day basis, we don't need it, honestly. And then you realize that you have this amazing and huge problems because we don't touch that kind of stuff that people doesn't want to talk about it. So taking that into
Exactly.
right.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of times what I'm doing is trying to draw parallels between just people's day-to-day lives and then what it means in the technology. Because people will say all the time, like, oh, ethics doesn't matter, like that's something you add on at the end. I'm like, okay, but let's take a step out and just look at you as a person. Like, would you feel uneasy? Would you not like this if this happened to you? Then go, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what you're putting into the code here. So let's take a few steps back. These actually are almost like hard coding rules of how we as humans function.
Realizing that technology pros and services is not only the thing that you do physical, it's also like the actions and strategy that you put together in order to do that.
Huge influence. Exactly.
So what are the reasons companies avoid using AI? I know this is a hard debate and there is in any way like social media and blogs and web pages. And why you think it's important for companies start consider using AI? I listen to a lot of different colleagues that tell me I'm using AI, but I don't want that my company or my manager or my stakeholder know that I'm using AI. And it's like, why? And companies are still doing like, no, no, we are not in that train.
I think because it picked up kind of this negative connotation, but I think my favorite one that I've heard so far is I had a friend say, I use ChatGPT like it's my dirty little secret. Like I use it, but I don't want people to know that I've used it. And it's totally become this kind of odd, well, I know that AI might be kind of scandalous or bad to use because I've seen all of these tech scandals. I've seen all these bad use cases. And so I don't really want people to know that I'm using it, but I am using it because it's helpful, because it's useful. But I think when it comes to companies, it's really just, you can boil it down to this trust issue where we're operating in this economy that's built off of trust. Users use companies or go with companies that they trust. And right now, AI is seen, has either is hyped up over and beyond its actual capabilities, or it's coded in this picture of fear of this is our overlord and it's going to overtake us. Both directions aren't really inspiring for any type of trust between a user and a company, or a user and a solution. So we've got that kind of breakdown of trust, which is why a lot of companies and individuals don't necessarily want to be very open about the fact that they're using AI. Even in the cases, I've seen it in the opposite direction too, where companies try and hide the fact that they're not using AI in the opposite direction. So it's like this odd curtain that we've drawn in all directions of, we're a little bit afraid to use it, but we're also afraid not to use it. And across the board, if we say anything, then that might just trigger some type of scandal or mistrust. Or there's a lot of confusion. We'll put it that way.
I think one of the biggest thing is like, and please tell me if you feel the same. But I think some in some instances people feel that if they are using AI, they are not using the whole potential of their intelligence. And they think like this is like removing my work or actually exchange me for my work. Or instead of seeing this as a tool, this is just me being lazy. And companies doesn't want that their employees like remains on that, right?
Yeah. And that's definitely this one kind of mindset that has become a big blocker of, well, AI is just going to replace what I do. When really it's not at all like that. You actually still have to have a skill set and a depth of knowledge of your own field in order to be able to utilize the tool to its fullest extent. So I always like to say, instead of compete, what about complement? How do we complement our current work with these tools? So, for example, like I'm a writer, I'm an author. My book was released today across the world, which is amazing. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you. And so for me, though, I looked at writing this book, and I look at writing a lot of my material, and I don't use generative AI in a lot of my thought based and my opinion pieces, because for me, the use of AI in those cases isn't the strongest case. Um, what I like to say there is, in my opinion pieces or in my book, I have a very specific voice that I really have loved and nurtured over time that I want to bring forward. I'm also writing on topics that really haven't been written on before. And so using a generative AI system that's based off of all of the information that's already been written for is not going to be useful to me. However, I do use these generative AI systems when it comes to writing marketing material. I hate writing marketing material. I suck at writing marketing material. I'm really good at figuring out how to prompt even just the basic chat GPT to just write a quick little blurb for me. And then I can move on and get my one pager out and have no problem. So that I give this as an example of, I'm not feeling like I'm competing with these generative AI tools. I have identified where my strengths are as a writer and what I like to do in terms of my writing, where I find fulfillment and purpose. And then I'm looking at the places where I'm not the best at writing marketing material. It takes me forever. It frustrates me. And so I use generative AI to complement then. I use it to complement my work. And that's just a very, very basic example of the difference between this, oh, generative AI is going to overtake my job and it's going to replace me, versus, no, I know what I'm good at and I know what I want support on and I know how to complement. And so I can really use these tools to their fullest extent for me, like that, my relationship with AI.
I love, and I actually prefer your example, but I have another one because I always talk with designers about it, and the majority of the
Yeah.
designers tell me like, Leishi, but we cannot use AI because we will not have job in 5 years and whatever. And it's like, hey man, Hey, girl, it's just like the calculators and the mathematics. When the calculators go out, every educator, it was like, oh my god, the kids will not have like equations in their brain, they will not know how to do a sum or like a multiply or whatever. and
Yep.
then and then they realize that the calculator can do the equation, but if you don't do the process correctly, you will get wrong answers. And it's the same with the prompt. I was like,
Mm.
designers, if you do a good prompt, you can do a multiple things and you can expedite your work. But if you are doing super bad at designing the prompt, you will get bad results. So it's a
Yeah.
complement, it's a tool. It's not changing the way that you are actually doing your work with creativity. That's another thing that they always tell.
Exactly, exactly. I, for one, know that I am absolutely terrible at any type of image generation prompt. I get the weirdest stuff. I like, it's one of those things where every time I try and sit down and use something like Dolly for an image prompt, I look at it and I'm like, what is this? What have I created? This is not what I thought I was going to come out with. So that's a skill set I have not fine tuned yet, is prompting for images.
Definitely. I have the same problem with code. Like, again, you design a bad prompt, you will get bad results. I was having a
Yep.
engineer that tell me, Leishi, but you don't know how to code. Don't worry, you can use ChatGPT. It was like, okay, but I don't know the logistics of the code. I don't understand the language.
Where do I even start?
So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So with the rise of AI, there's been a debate about whether machines can possess ethical consciousness. This is like Terminator movie. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. In your opinion, what ethical responsibilities, if any, do organizations have towards AI systems that may exhibit advanced decision making capabilities? I don't know. This is like the again Terminator movie.
So, I mean, I would say on one hand, ethics is something that is very, very human. It's a very human practice. And it actually requires the capacity for empathy, which machines don't have. Empathy
Hmm.
is essentially, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy means I see your situation, and by the facts of your situation, I determine that this is a sad situation, right? It doesn't mean that I actually understand what you're feeling. It means that I understand, based off of the context, that this is probably sad. Versus empathy is I see the situation you're in, I see the context you're in, I've experienced something similar. And so I understand quite personally what you are feeling. And so I have empathy for your situation. There's that difference. Machines aren't capable of empathy, they are capable of sympathy. But when it comes to our moral understanding and our ethical maturity, so essentially our ability to understand and interpret values and grow over time in our understanding of what is a good and bad action and so on, really is dependent on that capacity for empathy, to be able to see, okay, this decision that I have made, I see that it has made a very sad situation for you. And I feel that, I empathize that with that. So I'm going to correct my decision, and I'm going to fine tune that. So on a very, and I'm speaking on very, very basic levels here, but that capacity for empathy is something machines don't possess. And so I always advise, people will say, oh, well, we can offload our moral understanding, our moral decision making to these machines. Well, if we start to do that, we're at risk of something that's called moral lock-in. And what that means is we will lock ourselves into our current moral understanding, our current moral code, our current understanding of ethics. We as humans, though, we actually have something called moral maturity, where our moral code matures over time. So the example that I always use is 100 years ago, as a woman, I could not vote. Now, we as a society matured over time and realized that's not cool. Let's change that. And so now I can vote and say, hey, maybe in 100 years from now, robots can vote. I don't think that's where we're headed. But what I'm trying to say with that example is our understanding as a society, as we learn and grow over time, our moral code adapts to embrace that new understanding of those values. Not saying that our values before were wrong, but we have a stronger, more in tune understanding of those values. If we were to offload our moral decision making and our ethical decision making to these machines, then what would happen is we would get locked into our current place and time of our moral code, because we have no we have no patience. We have no ability to look at a machine and say, oh, you made a wrong decision. It's this machine has to make a perfect decision every single time from the start. So there's no capacity to learn and grow with our moral understanding with the machine, with our machines and our AI tools. I've gone completely down a rabbit hole on this, but with that Terminator sense, I think if I were to summarize all of this, our moral decision making is something that should always come back to the human. And yes, we're not always going to be perfect and get it right, but that's actually a very important part of being human and being able to understand and grow and mature over time. We don't want to lose that. We really don't want to lose that and offload it to machines. We can use machines, we can use AI tools to give us better insight into the impacts of our decisions to help us grow more. But our growth should not be outsourced, let's say, to AI systems.
I love how you actually define the two things, because empathy has emotions, right? And that's what makes us humans. And
Yeah.
one of the things that for me was really important to have in this conversation, talking about bias, and machines can maybe, because of the algorithm and how we train the algorithm, say like this is wrong, this is bad, but the implications and the feelings and the emotions that has like the data, it's because we interpret it in a way because we feel right the results, and the
Yeah.
machines cannot do that. And yeah, sometimes companies is just like, oh, that's the response of the AI, yeah, but it's still human led, so it has human
Exactly.
consequences. So as AI technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated, because it has like it has an evolution that it came super fast, what
Mm.
innovate methods do you recommend for ensuring that these systems uphold ethical standards and align with societal values? Like, I know this is a hard question, but as you mentioned, like we have this consciousness of like things are changing because the world is changing, right? As
Yeah.
the example that you mentioned of the woman and the boat. So how we can actually using AI and having AI in our side in the same way that we are growing as a society.
Yeah. This is so a few different ways here. One of the most important ways is the understanding that we will incrementally, this is an incremental process. This isn't an all or nothing perspective. And so I find this happen quite a lot when it comes to ethics and responsible AI. It's this kind of inertia that happens with companies and especially leadership, where they look at it and they go, well, we can't get it all right all at the start all at once. So we're just not going to do it. Like it's all or nothing. That's it. Not even close. Ethics and responsible AI, that's an incremental process that you're going to start to embed and establish these different initiatives that keep you moving in the right direction. So the first point here is understanding it's incremental. Starting is the most important part, and then you build over time as you find greater and deeper needs. Um, it also means that you're constantly checking with your end users. You're understanding, hey, are you actually experiencing, say, these values that we want you to experience? If you're not, well, we have some things to change.
Mhm.
What is the impact of our technology, and being able to change and adapt with it? So that's the incremental feedback and growth is something that's very important. The second aspect of this, when it comes to responsible AI and actually creating AI technology that's reflective of our values, it's understanding that this happens on three different layers. It happens on the technology layer, so quite literally the technical infrastructure that you have in place. But then it's also impacted by the operational processes. So the process layer. So this looks specifically at the company of how is the AI solution either being built or used. And then the third layer is the people. You're quite literally looking at the company culture and the people that are building these systems. So what happens is it's very easy to just see the technology kind of at the top and say, well, this is what we actually want to have impact on. So that must be the only place where there's actual work to be done. When truly 9 times out of 10, the process and the people have far more of an impact on the outcome than the technical infrastructure. So if you don't have the right company culture and operational processes in place, you're really not going to see any of that impact that you're after on the technical layer. And I do actually have a tool for this that's super helpful. It's called the Values Canvas. And if you go to thevaluescanvas.com, you can download it. It's a Canvas worksheet that is a holistic management template for embedding values. And it's pinpointed the 9 impact points. So the 9 places that both support strong, responsible, and really secure AI development and use, but it's also the 9 points in that you can reflect and embed in human values. So it's a very useful tool. It's free to download, and it's something incredibly helpful when you're just either starting out on a project or leadership and so on in your company, trying to get your mind wrapped around like, how in the world do we get privacy into place here, and being able to map out like, oh, here's where privacy goes in.
I really love when we have practical things to do after the interview. So people, please go. What is the URL again, so we can post it?
Thevaluescanvas.com.
You got it. So people, you have a tool out there to start actually implementing. I love that you mentioned that this is incremental, and people are really into everything needs to move fast. If move fast in the other way, I will just stop. And this is our philosophy here in Come and See. Like, you need to learn from mistakes. You need to come and see sometimes in order to learn. And yeah, you cannot expect to start with the right foot every time.
Exactly. And I think here's another really good thing to point out here too is sometimes responsible AI and ethics can be seen as that blocker where you have to completely stop and slow down and throw on the brakes all over the place. But if you're taking the incremental approach, you can actually keep pace with your development as well. And it gives you the breathing points where it's like, oh, I heard this technique once that runners will, maybe it's not runners or long distance walkers, or I'm completely butchering this, but some type of long distance movement, either running or walking, where you take a breath, like you take a pause at the top of your step. And that's where you build up the strength to go the long distance. So instead of just pushing, no breaks, or having to take a long break to recuperate, it's a technique where it's like you pause and you breathe at the top of the step. Don't ask me what the technique is called. Clearly, I don't even actually really know the full technique, but I remember listening to this, and that's kind of how I see with responsible AI. It's like even if you're in like in agile methodology or something, you're taking a breath at the top right before you step and keep going forward. So it's not that you are throwing on all the brakes. You're just going, yep, this is still the direction I want to go. Okay, I'm good. Let's go. So it's yeah, that incremental part is vital to be able to bring this to life.
Completely agree. And I run, so yes.
Hey,
um,
okay, I got it.
but the other thing is, like, people think that this is a checklist. If you don't actually check all the boxes, you cannot start with AI, and that is not the thing. The thing is, like, be important to check the entire process. Like, I know a case of a
Yeah,
company that is using AI for recruitment, and they noticed that they have some bias in the recruitment process because of the algorithm. They don't stop to recruit people. They start working on that specific bias, and
yeah,
then they enhance the entire experience. And it was because they don't stop and they check what it was going on that they was able to flag that error. So it's super
exactly,
important to have that incremental. Again, we need errors in order to learn. Come and see.
exactly, exactly. No, they're so important, and it's giving that. I almost want to call it like a sense of humility where you can own that you've made the error and you say, okay, I've done that, and now I'm going to do better. But it does take a certain amount of bravery from a person too to be able to say, all right, Command Z, oops, messed that up. All right, let me go and fix it. But it's something very admirable to be able to commit mistakes and then go and learn from them.
I mean, Michael Jordan tried baseball and it was horrible. Now we
Clearly not
know
his thing.
he's the best, one of the best basketball players, but he tried baseball. Anyways,
Tried. Important word, tried.
try. I was reading a chapter of your book and they really caught me my attention. You talk about the techno value blind spot, and it was like, what is this? And you start to explain it and have a definition about it. It was like, huh, makes total sense. Sometimes designers and engineers want to solve problems with solutions based on hard skills, the code, the design, like the technical aspect of like the real thing, right? Like I know the
Yeah.
tool really well. I can do this in just like 3 minutes, just for example. However, some problems have deeper roots, not necessarily the hard skills. And with AI, these roots are even deeper. So, can you shed some light on the concept of techno value blind spot?
Absolutely. And I think this is probably really coming out of my my time as a philosopher, just trying to get down to the why and the definition of everything.
The reason
But
of life.
oh my god, exactly, exactly. I realized that the other day, I had a friend comment. She's like, "You're always asking why." I'm like, I can't help it. It's kind of stuck there. I I can't turn it off. So eventually, it's okay if you tell me to stop asking why. I will stop, but it's just my natural default. But um, why I'm saying that is when it comes to working with these values, it's not necessarily like you were saying. It's not necessarily there's technical solutions here. They can go much deeper, but the first step when it comes to understanding these values is actually to have the definition of these values down. So, for example, I said privacy earlier. Let's embed privacy into a system. Cool. I can assume, or I would assume that my definition of privacy is the same as your definition of privacy. However, that might not be the case. And if we don't have that clear definition down, if we don't have that clear central piece down, then what's happening there is we're trying to solve for two different things at the same time. So we get this kind of, well, in one way, we get that blind spot of not being able to spot why are you designing in one way and I'm designing in another, even though we're both working on privacy, we're both trying to embed privacy, but your system looks completely different than my system. What the heck happened here? That has nothing to do with the technical solution side. That has everything to do with the human side and our understanding of the concept itself, the value itself.
Yep. And one of the things that I really like is like, oh, I only interpret this component in this way, and another person interpret in another way, and we design different things. But when we go of the values of the company, we say, oh, maybe we need to shape this in another direction, and that
Yep.
is so important to also like having in the hand, like always be aligned with company values, aligned with company purpose, and use AI on those lines too. Sometimes they think like because it's a tool, it will be just here in the technical side, and that will be it. And as you mentioned, it comes along with other important things as privacy.
Exactly. Exactly. There's so many more layers. It's like I was saying, it's the people and process. Who is building? How are they building? Who is using? How are they using? That can have even more impact than the technical solutions themselves, which is really an easy blind spot to have when we are so technically driven.
I have been really lucky that I was having the opportunity to meet some hires, some stakeholders, and some companies that really want to use AI. And I have a couple of companies here in Puerto Rico that they are trying to lead and show in case that they use of AI. It's an advantage as a tool.
Yeah.
But you cannot necessarily see that across the board, or everyone really wants to do that. And I want to talk about leadership. How do you envision the role of ethical leadership in driving organization change and fostering a culture of responsible AI. I know that some leaders really want to focus on like moving money or doing things really quickly or just changing and be ahead of the competition, but
Mhm.
how they can start actually working with ethical leadership.
So I would say there are two main points that I want to focus in here. One is the kind of company culture. As a leader, that is your job to establish and direct that company culture that your teams. So I want to talk about what kind of culture, very specific piece. And then um, I want to talk about as well the business case around AI. So starting with the company culture aspect, and these are the two main pieces in terms of leadership as we go into this future around AI. Your job as a leader is to establish a company culture of curiosity, not judgment. So what can happen quite often is this misconception that, oh, you made this ethical decision and I don't agree with it, you're a bad person, or I made a bad ethical decision and I'm a bad person. And it creates this kind of toxicity of, well, I don't want to talk about this and I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to be a bad person. Where instead, if you approach AI and approach responsible AI and ethics with a sense of curiosity of explain to me why you made that decision or walk me through what your thinking was, that just slight shift from the point of, ooh, why'd you make that decision, to explain to me, I want to know, creates actually this balance where you can embrace and understand better, okay, this is your perspective. And oftentimes what it does is it opens up a whole new field either for innovative solutions, or it actually pinpoints some really what could be harmful blind spots, or red flags that you've been missing. So that sense of curiosity creates and opens a culture where it's not shut down, and people aren't hiding, oh, I'm using this AI or I'm using this tool. It creates that open dialogue that we really need. So as a leader, it's your job to establish that culture of curiosity, both around the technology and around responsible AI practices and ethical values. Ask, well, here's the philosopher again, ask why, seek to understand. So that's in terms of company culture. The other aspect that's very important for leaders to understand, and is really a very important part, is to truly understand the business case for an AI solution. I can't tell you how many companies I've seen now adopt generative AI tools such as Copilot or the whole GPT suite, and they didn't do it in a way where they had a clear use case. They had a clear business case, a clear problem that they needed, or a clear point of support. And now they're having to retrospectively try and figure out how to use these tools. So they've already spent hundreds and thousands of dollars to adopt these tools or even to build their own. But they didn't start from a place of understanding, how is this AI going to support us? Or how is this going to, like, how are we taking this to market even? If we're developing a tool for the market, what problem are we trying to solve? And without that, there is an extreme risk of wasting a whole lot of money, and having tools that no one knows how to use or misuses because there wasn't that original intention of, well, what's the root of this that we're trying to work at. And that really, again, lies with leadership, to be able to understand, hey, what is the purpose that we're bringing, we're either adopting this tool or we're building this tool for. Without that clear vision on that purpose, or at least a clear vision on where you want to experiment, the direction, the points that you're after, then it's kind of like that saying where you throw spaghetti at the wall and hope what sticks, but like you're throwing spaghetti into a black void and you're hoping that it spits something back at you. It's not even throwing it at the wall and hoping it sticks. So to wrap it up, to like bring it all back together with leadership, it's fostering that culture of curiosity. So always looking at the people first, but then also getting a clear view on what is the business case for this tool. And that will really help you move fast and move ahead of competition instead of spinning your wheels, wasting money and time and resources on a tool trying to say, hey, it was supposed to do great things, and why isn't it doing great things?
I can summarize that with intention, and I was
Mhm.
laughing inside, but because I have a memory. And I will give you the example before. So I'm the person that when I am being at a conference, I love to use bow ties and suits and be really like dress up. And I have a couple of colleagues that I don't know why they tell me later, but I don't know why they start doing the same. And one
Yeah,
time they told me like, I hate to do this thing. I don't know how you do it. Like it's so much heat. Like I don't feel myself. Like I don't know how you actually like do this in the every conference. It was like, why you start doing this? What was your intention of doing this?
yeah,
I think it was cool because you do it. And it was like, intention. I do it because for me, in my case, it works. Like
yeah,
I really stand out. Like, and I really like people like see me, and when they see me, know who I am. But if
yeah.
you don't have like how we say in Puerto Rico, the flow, you you
I
don't have
love it.
you don't have the intention and the strategy behind it. Why you will do that? You will lose the time. You will lose like a lot. Like these people really was like passing a bad time with the heat here, trying to dress up. Um, so
Not the
is this
intention.
yeah, so it's the same with AI. A lot of companies want to really be the cool kids on the block using AI, but they don't know a really business case that they can use it. They don't know how to use it. They don't have a real problem to solve with AI. So that's why they're losing a lot of money and they are doing it in a bad way. They are not using it in the correct way.
Exactly, exactly. They're trying to dress up in a full tux in the middle of what, like 120-degree weather, and you're like, what are you doing here? Exactly. I love that example though, because it's so true. It's the intention behind it. If you don't have the intention set behind, I mean, we can philosophize and say anything in life, then it's eventually going to break. There's emptiness behind there. You need to have that intention. You need to have that clear view. That's like making sure that you have the strongest foundations possible.
Yep. Not everyone like can hold this flow. Not just kidding. Just kidding.
Exactly. Not everyone's this cool.
Anyways, I we talk about companies, we talk about leadership, but I want to talk about also like relationships with technology, like
Yes.
people that do the common basis, the day-to-day work, like engineers and designers, how they can start leverage a good relationship with AI. This is just like a dating thing. We talk
Yeah.
about Olivia and I talk about this previous of the interview, and I love the concept of what is the ideal relationship that I need to have with AI.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I mean, let's look at regular, like not regular, but like human relationships, and let's say, okay, you're looking for what you want in a partner, and so you see people with very very healthy relationships, and most of the time they're in that healthy relationship because they took the time to understand, well, this is the kind of person that would give me that complements me, that gives me the support that I need, and that I can give equal support for in the opposite direction. You have really strong relationships and partnerships when you go into it knowing this is what I'm seeking in let's say, a long-term partner or so on. Same kind of mentality, we can carry that over into our technology, and we can look at it and say, well, what what do I need out of this relationship? And
Intention.
intention, exactly. You're like, well, what do I get out of this? And I think a great point to highlight here is there was a comment that went around the internet that said something like, we created these AI tools to do our laundry so we could do art, and now we have these AI tools doing our art and we're doing laundry. And I want to stress here that we as people, we're still in control. This isn't something that passively happens to us. It's not technology passively happening to us. So you can look at that situation and say, I want to do art. Well, then I'm going to look for an AI system that's going to do my laundry. I'm speaking in metaphors here, but I'm going to look for an AI system that's going to do my laundry instead of me saying, well, I guess everyone's using AI for art, even though that's really what I want to do. So I guess I'll do the laundry then. Like it's that it takes that level of self-awareness though to really ask yourself and say, where do I need support in my work? What can actually help me do my job better? But also, in another way, I think a great approach here is to look at your work and say, what do I love doing? What am I really good at? And then distilling that and saying, okay, well, this is what I want to do myself. This is like my example earlier. I've developed and I've nurtured my own writing voice, and that's something I love doing. And so for me, why would I try and look to train an AI to have my voice, or use AI to write in my voice, when it's something that I get so much joy and purpose out of? Versus I can look for other directions where there's something that I don't like to do as much, or I'm not as good at, and I have the complement. Um, it is truly a relationship of what yeah, what's a healthy relationship between me and my technology.
I think a lot of people are in this kind of relationship of Beauty and the Beast. They have a lot of fear of the beast that is AI, but
Yeah.
they know that they have something good in there, so they want to change it and embrace it.
Yep. Yep.
At the final, people, you will get in love with AI, just like the Beauty and the Beast. Just saying. Um,
Exactly. The big reveal, Prince Charming and everything.
well, we are almost at the final of the interview, but you cannot go without actually answers the common questions of come and see. So,
Ready.
Olivia, what are your horror story talking about AI? What has been a horror story for you, and what you learned? That's the most important thing of the question. And what do you learn from that horror story?
So whoa, you can only imagine, as an ethicist, I one day need to write a stand-up bit on all of the weird scenarios that I have found myself in, because for some reason, when you tell people you're an ethicist, they're like, great, I get to ask you all of the really weird questions that I don't feel comfortable asking anyone else. And then you're sat there going like, I don't know what to do with this information, but cool, let's work with it. So I have plenty of horror stories, but I would say, and I have to speak a little bit in the abstract here, only because I can't give exact names here. But I was working with a Fortune 100 bank, and I was working with their executives, and the person that was in charge of the entire AI strategy had this mindset where he's like, it's okay. AI, you just like pick it off the shelf and you put it in, and it'll work. Like, we don't have to really do anything with it. It just goes. And I was questioning him. I was like, what do you mean? Where are you putting it? And he's like, well, I don't know. I just kind of gave it to my assistant and said, whatever you want. And I'm looking at this going like, and he's like, yeah, it's like a magic wand. I'm like, it is not a magic wand. And that took a really long time actually to unpack, to find where all of his teams were using AI, because he had given this free reign of like, well, it's fine. Everything will go great. And that was just like the rabbit hole of problem after problem after problem, because there was no direction given on this is like a good use of AI. It was costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in all of these different tools that only like one person was using, and not necessarily using to the full extent. So it was that trickle down effect of the leadership being like, I'm the cool kid on the block. We're going to use AI everywhere, but not giving a clear set direction. And it just turned into like this chaotic cacophony of all of these different AI tools that no one really knew what they were doing with. So a little bit in the abstract there, but I would say that was definitely a horror story, just in terms of what the heck's going on here.
And then we learned that we need intention, people. We need intention. It's not only wearing a suit, it's just like the intention of wearing that suit. So, fallando en lo fácil, I want to learn from you. What do you think are the easy mistakes that designers and engineers make when they start using AI with this relationship that we talked previously?
All right, I'm done. Hopefully I'm done coughing there.
Don't
I,
worry, take your time.
I did so well. We had the whole time I didn't cough, and then all of a sudden I got laughing too much, and that didn't go well. Uh, I would say, that the two, and we've already touched on this as well, but I'd say the two biggest blockers that designers will face is when using AI is first not going in without an understanding of what do I want to use this tool for? So the intention, but like we were saying with the relationship of what am I good at that I want to do better at that I want to do versus what skill sets can I complement? Not replace, but complement my work with. So that kind of sense of, well, this AI does this really good, but I actually kind of liked doing that. Then keep doing it. It's okay. You don't have to use AI for everything. So I'd say that, and then I'd say the other one is, and this comes from the responsibility and ethics side, is not having a clear working definition of the values, or even a clear value set that you want to see embedded. So, for example, if you are using an AI tool, if you have that value set of how I want privacy, fairness, and transparency, and I have clear definitions for all of these, what that does is it gives like a North Star. It gives a reference point that I can constantly refer back to. If I don't have that, and I get to the end of using this tool or project, and I look back and I'm like, well, oops, there's no, like, I missed these. You didn't have the reference points in place.
No worries.
I'm muting, so you don't have to hear how terrible this sounds. But I think the theme of this episode's become intention, because it is the intention of having a clear understanding of how is this tool going to complement me, and then what are the values that I want to align with in the use of this tool, and what does that look like in action?
We need that North Star. Well,
Exactly.
Olivia, we almost finalized this amazing interview, and thank you so much for learning from all your knowledge about AI. So, why would you copy and paste? What good things do you think are necessary to copy and to paste in the future in the engineer and design field?
I would say copy and paste would be to talk with people that aren't in your field. So talk with people that come from different perspectives, and especially talk with people that come from what you would think are softer backgrounds. Go talk to the philosophers, go talk to the marketers. What that does is it gives you a bigger world view, a bigger picture on what you're building for. And being able to talk with people outside of your field and outside of your perspectives, or even just your life experiences, opens you up to seeing, hey, there's also other solutions here, and there's different things that I need to incorporate, and that there's different even approaches, innovative approaches to solving a problem. So copy and paste, I'd say, if all of your friends are engineers, go adopt a random sales guy or something. Like go bring in people that aren't in your silo, because it's in bringing in these different perspectives that you learn so much. It's not that your perspective is wrong or your work's wrong or it's less valued. It's that you have one viewpoint on the world, and that viewpoint, when brought into comparison with another viewpoint, makes for some beautiful, it's the beautiful complexity there. And it's in those comparison points that you find real true creativity and real true progress.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being here in Comment See podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lacey, and thank you for surviving my coughing.
No worries. So if everyone wants to follow you or want to just say hi, where we can find you?
Well, you can find me most active on LinkedIn, which is just my name, Olivia Gambelin. I've got a newsletter as well. It's called In Pursuit of Good Tech. I publish once a week with a little asterisk, because sometimes that week goes by and it becomes 2 weeks, once every other week. But In Pursuit of Good Tech is all focused on the next and new era of innovation in AI. So I talk a lot about different techniques for product innovation and understanding how to use human values as determining and decision factors when it comes to designing and using our AI solutions as we go forward. So I'd say those two are the best places. I think I technically still have a Twitter. But yes, LinkedIn and my newsletter on Substack are the two best places to join my community, follow along, and say hi.
There you go, people. So thank you so much, Olivia, for being here in Come and See.
Uh-oh. You're gonna say that in 15 years.
Esto es Comando Z.